The grand hall of the Galactic Council echoed with laughter. Not the kind, welcoming sort, but the cruel, mocking kind that powerful beings direct at those they consider beneath them. On the central platform stood Earth's ambassador, Robert White. His face remained calm despite the ridicule surrounding him. A seventh-dimensional vessel. The Grand Speaker's voice boomed through the chamber. Your species barely mastered faster than light travel 50 years ago. Now you claim to have conquered dimensional physics. Robert straightened his back and gestured to the hologram floating beside him. The image showed a sleek ship unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Its hull seemed to bend in impossible ways, with curves that appeared to fold into themselves. The Archimedes is humanity's greatest achievement, he said, his voice steady. We invite all species to witness its maiden voyage next month. More laughter followed. Some delegates were literally falling out of their seats. The Grand Speaker wiped tears from all four of his eyes. Back on Earth, in the massive underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Captain Mark watched the council broadcast with a tight smile. Beside him, Chief Engineer Tom worked on final calculations, his fingers dancing across multiple holographic screens. They're still laughing, Tom said without looking up. Just like they laughed when we first reached Mars. Just like they laughed when we developed our first colony ship. Mark nodded, his eyes fixed on the quantum core at the center of their hangar. The Archimedes towered above them, its surface shimmering with a faint blue glow. The ship wasn't large by galactic standards, only about 400 meters long. But size wasn't what made it special. Mary, Mark called out to their lead scientist, who was examining data streams near the core. How's she looking? Mary pulled herself away from her work, her gray hair messy from running her hands through it too many times. The dimensional folds are stable, all 7 of them. We're ready, Captain. 50 years ago, when humanity first met the galactic community, they'd been treated like children. The older species, some of whom had been spacefaring for millions of years, saw humans as amusing pets. They shared some basic technology, expecting humans to take centuries to understand it. They didn't expect humans to completely reinvent their equations. Captain, a voice called from above. You need to see this. The ship's AI, simply named Adam, projected a new screen showing various news feeds from across the galaxy. The stories were all the same. Earth's ridiculous claim of dimensional mastery. Some called it cute. Others called it dangerous delusion. The Dominion representative is making a statement, Adam announced. The screen switched to show a tall, elegant being with crystalline features. The Dominion had ruled space for longer than Earth had existed. Their representative spoke with the weary patience of a parent addressing a particularly difficult child. While we appreciate humanity's enthusiasm, we must remind them that dimensional physics beyond the 4th dimension is purely theoretical. We have studied this for millions of years. Their claims are not just impossible, they demonstrate a fundamental misunderstanding of universal laws. Mark turned to his crew, all 100 of them working at various stations around the massive hangar. You hear that? Impossible. Misunderstanding. He smiled. Just like it was impossible for a primitive species to crack quantum computing in under a decade. Just like we couldn't possibly understand dark matter manipulation so quickly. The crew shared knowing looks. They'd all seen this before. Tom finally looked up from his calculations. Final numbers are green, Captain. The dimensional folds are holding perfectly. We can begin final preparations whenever you're ready. Mark walked to the observation window, staring up at the Archimedes. Its design had come to him in a dream. The way the hull would need to curve to accommodate the dimensional folds, how the quantum core would need to rotate through dimensional spaces that technically didn't exist. The older species thought 3-dimensional beings couldn't perceive higher dimensions. They were right, mostly, but they'd never considered that being 3-dimensional might be an advantage. Sometimes you needed to look from the bottom to see the top. Begin preparations, Mark ordered. Let them laugh. In 1 month, we'll show them why humans have always looked up at the stars and dreamed impossible dreams. Above them, the Archimedes pulsed with energy, its quantum core spinning in ways that broke half the laws of physics, and in ways that would soon change the galaxy forever. The mockery wouldn't last much longer. The Archimedes engine room hummed with a sound that shouldn't exist. Mary stood before the quantum core, watching numbers flow across her screen that broke every known law of physics. She hadn't slept in 36 hours, but her eyes remained sharp and focused. "The seventh fold is holding," she whispered, more to herself than to Adam, the ship's AI who was always listening. They said it would collapse. They said human minds couldn't comprehend the math. "Yet here we are," Adam replied, his holographic form appearing beside her. "Though I must point out that you should rest before the final preparations." Mary waved away his concern. The equations dancing across her screen were too beautiful to leave. Each line represented another impossible thing, another barrier that humanity had simply refused to accept. Above them, through layers of quantum-shielded hull, the Rocky Mountain facility buzzed with activity. Captain Mark stood in the control room, watching feeds from orbital satellites. The news wasn't good. 3 Dominion warships just appeared in high orbit, Tom reported from his station. They're claiming it's a peaceful observation mission. Mark's jaw tightened. Peaceful, with plasma cannons charged. The massive ships hung in Earth's orbit like dark stars, their crystalline hulls reflecting sunlight. Each one was bigger than a small city. Their presence sent a clear message. The Dominion was done laughing. "Captain." Adam's voice came through the speakers. "Mary has made another breakthrough. You need to see this." In the engine room, Mary could barely contain her excitement as she showed Mark and Tom her latest discovery. The holographic display showed the quantum core's energy pattern, but now it moved in ways that even their most optimistic theories hadn't predicted. "The seventh dimensional fold isn't just stable," she explained, her hands moving through the hologram. "It's growing stronger. Each fold reinforces the others, creating a cascade effect. The Archimedes isn't just going to break the dimensional barriers, it's going to shatter them." Tom whistled low. "The power readings are off any scale we have," Mary finished. "When we activate the core at full power, we won't just be accessing higher dimensions. We'll be able to manipulate them." Mark studied the data, his expression serious. "Can we control it?" "That's the beautiful part," Mary said, pulling up another display. "Remember how the older species said our 3-dimensional brains couldn't process higher dimensional concepts? They were thinking about it wrong. Our limitation is our strength. We see patterns they miss because we have to simplify them." She brought up an image of a human brain scan next to an alien one. Their brains try to process all dimensions at once. Ours break them down, understand them piece by piece. It's like learning to walk before you run. A warning alarm cut through their discussion. Above, one of the Dominion ships had changed position. "They're scanning us," Tom reported. "Deep penetration scans. They're trying to look right through the mountain." Mark's hand clenched into a fist. "They're afraid," he said softly. "They've realized we weren't bluffing." "Sir," Adam interrupted, "I'm detecting quantum fluctuations from their ships. They appear to be charging some form of dimensional dampening field." Mary laughed, surprising everyone. "They think we're using the same dimensional physics they understand. They don't realize that we've gone far beyond that," Mark finished. "How long until we can launch?" "Final system checks will take 6 hours," Tom said. "You have 3, Mark replied. "They're not here to observe. They're here to stop us." Through the reinforced windows, the Archimedes waited, its hull gleaming under the harsh lights. The quantum core pulsed with increasing strength, each beat sending ripples through dimensions that human eyes couldn't see but human minds had learned to understand. Mary returned to her calculations, her tired eyes now bright with purpose. Above them, the Dominion ships moved into attack positions, their crews confident in their superior technology and million-year-old science. They didn't understand that sometimes the greatest discoveries come not from building on old knowledge, but from being willing to throw away everything you think you know and start fresh. Humanity had always been good at that. In 3 hours, the galaxy would learn just how good. Red lights flashed throughout the Rocky Mountain facility. The Dominion ships had moved into a triangle formation above Earth's atmosphere, their massive forms blocking out the stars. All personnel to launch positions. Captain Mark's voice echoed through the complex. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. In the Archimedes engine room, Mary's fingers flew across the control panels. The quantum core pulsed faster now, its light shifting through colors that human eyes weren't meant to see. Each pulse sent ripples through space itself. Dimensional fold 1 through 4, stable, she reported. 5 and 6, holding strong. 7, she smiled. 7 is perfect. Tom's voice crackled over the comm. Captain, they're powering up their dimensional dampening field. But there's something else. Energy readings I've never seen before. They're scared, Mark replied from the bridge. Everyone, battle stations. Adam, start the launch sequence. Launch sequence initiated, the AI responded. Captain, I'm detecting unusual quantum fluctuations from the Dominion ships. They appear to be attempting to create a dimensional lock. The mountain above them began to retract, massive sections of reinforced rock sliding apart to reveal the star-filled sky. The Archimedes hull gleamed under the starlight, its impossible curves seeming to bend reality around them. Dominion fleet is broadcasting, Adam announced. Playing message. A deep crystalline voice filled the bridge. Human vessel, power down immediately. Your primitive understanding of dimensional physics poses a grave threat. Stand down, or we will be forced to take action. Mark sat in the captain's chair, his expression calm. Send our response. Adam. Message sent. Come and watch the show. The quantum core's hum grew louder, rising to a pitch that made teeth vibrate. Mary watched as the 7th dimensional fold began to expand, creating spaces where space shouldn't exist. All folds synchronized, she reported. Reality distortion field is forming exactly as predicted. We're ready, Captain. Above them, the Dominion ships began generating their dampening field. A visible wave of energy spread between their vessels, creating a net of force that had contained rebellious species for millions of years. They think they can hold us, Tom said, watching the energy readings. They still don't understand what we've built. Mark leaned forward in his chair. Show them. Begin dimensional shift. The Archimedes lifted off its pad, but not in any normal way. Instead of rising, it seemed to slide sideways through reality itself. The air around the ship rippled like water. And for a moment, everyone on board felt like they were everywhere and nowhere at once. 7th fold expanding. Mary called out, her voice tight with excitement. We're not just breaking through dimensions. We're weaving through them. On every sensor screen across the galaxy, the impossible happened. The Archimedes existed in multiple dimensional spaces simultaneously. The Dominion's dampening field, designed to lock ships into normal space, passed right through them, as if they weren't there. Because, in a way, they weren't. By the eternal stars, the Dominion commander's voice crackled through space. That's not possible. You can't. You couldn't have. The Archimedes appeared above their ships, then beside them, then below them, all at the same time. Every law of physics said it couldn't happen. Every advanced race had proved it couldn't happen. But humans had never been good at accepting limits. 7 dimensions, Mary whispered, watching her screens. We're actually doing it. We're surfing through 7 dimensions of space. The ship moved in ways that made eyes hurt and minds spin. It left trails of quantum fire through dimensions that most species couldn't even perceive. The Dominion ships tried to track it, their ancient weapons powering up. But how do you target something that exists in 7 dimensions at once? Send the final message, Mark ordered. Adam's voice carried across space to the Dominion fleet. The laughter stops now. Humanity has entered the game. The Archimedes spun through another impossible turn, its quantum core singing with power that defied understanding. Above Earth, below it, beside it, and through it, the ship danced through dimensions like humans had been born to do this. In the Galactic Council chamber, where laughter had echoed just days before, there was only stunned silence as they watched the feeds. Humanity hadn't just proven them wrong. They had shown them what impossible really meant. The Dominion ships didn't wait any longer. Green beams of concentrated plasma streaked through space, aimed at where the Archimedes had been a millisecond ago. But you can't hit what exists in 7 dimensions at once. Multiple weapons locked on us, Adam reported calmly, detecting quantum torpedoes, dimensional disruptors, and something new. They're using prototype weapons, Captain. Mark watched the deadly light show around his ship with steady eyes. They're throwing everything they have at us. Mary, what's happening with the 7th fold? In the engine room, Mary's eyes widened as she studied the readings. Captain, the attacks. They're not damaging us. They're making us stronger. Each blast is adding energy to our dimensional field. A massive explosion rocked nearby space as one of the Dominion's quantum torpedoes passed through where the Archimedes seemed to be, only to hit nothing. The ship existed in too many places at once, spreading itself across dimensions that the weapons couldn't touch. Sir, Tom's voice carried urgency. They're calling for reinforcements. 6 more Dominion warships just appeared at the edge of the solar system. On the bridge, Mark stood from his captain's chair. They still think this is about firepower. Adam, show me Earth's orbital defenses. The display showed red warnings everywhere. The Dominion's first attack wasn't aimed at the Archimedes at all. They were systematically destroying Earth's defensive satellites and space stations. Those stations have families on them, Mark said quietly. Mary, remember that theory you had about using the 7th dimension as a shield? It's untested, Captain. We never had the power to try it before, but now with the energy their attacks are feeding us. Do it. Mary's fingers danced across her controls, redirecting power to dimensional fold 7. Tom, I need you to invert the quantum flow. In space, the Archimedes seemed to stretch, its form becoming liquid-like. Then, suddenly, it was everywhere at once. A shimmering field of impossible energy spread out from the ship, enveloping Earth's orbital stations in a protective bubble that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Dominion's weapons passed through the shield as if it wasn't there, because in their dimension, it wasn't. The stations remained untouched. How? The Dominion commander's voice crackled through space. How are you doing this? Mark smiled. You spent millions of years mastering the rules. We spent 50 years learning how to break them. Adam, show them what else we've learned. The AI's voice held a note of satisfaction, initiating dimensional cascade. The Archimedes pulsed once, twice, and then reality itself seemed to hiccup. The quantum core, fed by the energy of the Dominion's attacks, unleashed its power in a way never seen before in the galaxy's history. Space folded, not just in one place, but everywhere around them. The Dominion ships suddenly found themselves firing at echoes, at shadows, at places where the Archimedes had been, and would be, and was, all at once. Their weapons are draining, Captain, Tom reported. They've used up most of their energy trying to hit us. Mary's voice held wonder as she reported from the engine room. The 7th dimensional fold is fully stable. We could maintain this for days now. Their attacks did exactly what we hoped. They proved our theories right. The more energy they use against us, the stronger our control over dimensional space becomes. The reinforcement ships arrived, their massive forms dropping out of faster-than-light travel. But they arrived to find their first attack fleet powerless, their mighty weapons useless against something they couldn't even fully perceive. Final warning, Mark broadcast to all Dominion ships. Leave Earth's space. Your weapons can't hurt us. Your shields can't stop us. And we're just starting to understand what this ship can really do. On screens across the galaxy, species who had laughed at humanity's claims watched in stunned silence. The legendary Dominion fleet, undefeated for millions of years, hung powerless in space before a single human vessel. But Mark knew this wasn't the end. In the Dominion's crystalline command ships, ancient beings were already planning their next move. They wouldn't accept this defeat easily. And honestly, humanity was counting on that. After all, they had only begun to explore what was possible when you stopped believing in impossible things. Mary had never seen anything so beautiful. On her display screens, the flow of seventh-dimensional energy created patterns that shouldn't exist. The quantum core's light pulsed in colors that made her eyes water, but she couldn't look away. "Captain," she called over the comm. "I think I've figured it out. Why the older species never managed this." On the bridge, Mark watched the Dominion fleet regrouping. Their ships had formed a new pattern, preparing for something big. "Tell me." "They were too advanced," Mary said, excitement in her voice. "They understood too much. Look at these readings. When they try to analyze our ship, they're looking at all dimensions at once. Their brains, their computers, they're all designed to process everything simultaneously." Tom joined in from his station. "But we can't do that. We have to break it down." "Exactly." Mary's fingers flew across her controls. "We see each dimensional fold separately because we have to. Our minds can't grasp it all at once, and that's why we can control it." Adam's holographic form appeared on the bridge. "She's right, Captain. The Dominion scans show they're trying to counter all dimensional effects simultaneously. They literally cannot comprehend handling each dimension separately." Mark nodded slowly. "Like trying to eat an entire meal in one bite instead of taking it piece by piece." An alarm blared through the ship. The Dominion fleet had begun their next attack, but this was different. Their ships were generating some kind of unified field. "They're trying to collapse all dimensional spaces at once," Tom reported. "It's their ultimate weapon. They're willing to destabilize space itself to stop us." But Mary was laughing. "They still don't get it. Captain, remember how I said their attacks were making us stronger? Watch this." She did something to the quantum core, and suddenly the Archimedes hummed with new power. The seventh dimensional fold expanded. But this time it was different. This time, they weren't just moving through dimensions. They were controlling them. "The seventh dimension isn't just another layer of space," Mary explained, her voice filled with wonder. "It's what connects all the others. The Dominion sees it as just one more dimension to control, but it's not. It's the key to everything." On the view screens, space itself seemed to bend around the Archimedes. The Dominion's attempt to collapse dimensional space was being absorbed, redirected, transformed. "We're not fighting against the dimensional collapse," Mary continued. "We're riding it like surfing a wave. Each dimension they try to collapse gives us more control over the seventh, and through it, all the others." Mark watched as his ship danced through reality, moving in ways that made his human mind spin. But he didn't need to understand it all at once. None of them did. That was their strength. "Sir," Adam reported, "I'm detecting quantum fluctuations I've never seen before. The seventh dimensional fold it's starting to create its own space." Tom's voice was filled with awe. "We're not just traveling through dimensions anymore. We're making new ones." The Dominion fleet's attack reached its peak. Space twisted and warped around them as they tried to force reality back to their understanding of it. But the Archimedes rode through it all, gathering power with each attempt to stop it. "Final analysis complete," Adam announced. "The seventh dimension appears to be a control mechanism for all others. By focusing on it separately, we can rewrite the rules," Mary finished. "Captain, we need to show them. Not just defend, not just evade. Show them what happens when you stop thinking something is impossible just because everyone says it is." Mark stood on his bridge, watching reality bend around his ship. Humanity had reached for the stars despite being told they were too far. They had dreamed of impossible things, and then found ways to make them real. "Do it," he ordered. The Archimedes quantum core pulsed once, and everything changed. The ship didn't just move through dimensions now. It commanded them. Space folded and unfolded at their will. And in their crystalline ships, the Dominion commanders realized a terrible truth. Their greatest weapon had just become humanity's greatest tool. The laughter had stopped long ago. Now, even the mockery of primitive humanity was forgotten. Now, there was only awe. The Dominion High Command had existed for millions of years. They had crushed rebellions, ended wars, and ruled space with absolute power. Now, for the first time, they were afraid. All ships, full attack. The High Commander's voice boomed across space. Destroy that vessel at any cost. 300 Dominion warships appeared around Earth, dropping out of faster-than-light travel like angry stars. Each one was a city-sized weapon, built with technology that had conquered galaxies. On the Archimedes bridge, Captain Mark remained calm. "Mary, are you seeing this?" "Oh, I'm seeing it," she replied from engineering, her voice excited. They've brought their entire defense fleet, every ship capable of dimensional warfare. "Captain, they're scared." The Dominion fleet spread out in a sphere around Earth, their formation perfect after millions of years of practice. Energy began building between their ships, connecting them in a web of destructive power. "They're trying to create a dimensional prison," Tom reported. "If they trap us in normal space, they think they can contain us," Mark finished. "Mary, show them why they're wrong." The quantum core's hum changed pitch, rising to a sound that made reality shiver. The Archimedes hull began to glow with impossible colors as all 7 dimensional folds activated at once. "Full power to the 7th fold," Mary called out. "Tom, ready for the cascade?" "Ready." "Adam, battle stations." The AI's voice was steady. "All systems prepared." "Captain, they are about to fire." Space exploded. Thousands of weapons, designed over millions of years, fired at once. The energy was enough to shatter planets. The dimensional prison closed around them like a fist of pure physics. But the Archimedes wasn't there. It wasn't anywhere. It was everywhere. "Initiating dimensional cascade," Mary announced. "Now they'll see what humans can really do." The ship's quantum core released its power. But this time, they weren't just moving through dimensions. They were controlling them, shaping them, creating them. Reality rippled around the Dominion fleet. Their dimensional prison, designed to trap the Archimedes in normal space, instead became a conduit for human ingenuity. "Their own energy network," Tom said in wonder. "We're using it against them." The Archimedes appeared inside their formation, then outside it, then in spaces between spaces. Each appearance sent waves of 7th-dimensional energy through the Dominion's perfect network. "Their ships are losing power," Adam reported. "The dimensional feedback is overloading their systems." On their crystalline bridges, Dominion commanders watched in horror as their mighty fleet was undone by the very laws of physics they thought they controlled. Their ships, trapped in their own energy web, couldn't escape as reality bent around them. "Last chance," Mark broadcast to the fleet. "Stand down. Even your oldest records show nothing like what we can do. You can't win this fight." The High Commander's response was instant. "We ruled space before your species learned to make fire. We will not bow to primitives." "As you wish," Mark nodded to his crew. "Mary, show them our full power. All 7 dimensions, maximum cascade." The Archimedes pulsed once, and existence itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, through the 7th dimension, they reached out and touched the very fabric of space-time. Around the Dominion fleet, reality folded. Not just bent or twisted, but folded like paper in ways that only humans, with their simple, step-by-step understanding, could control. Their ships found themselves trapped in loops of space-time, each one perfectly contained in bubbles of dimensional energy. "Status?" Mark asked. "Their fleet is completely neutralized," Adam reported. Each ship is contained in its own dimensional pocket. They can't move, can't fire weapons, can't even communicate. Mary's voice was filled with triumph. The seventh dimensional fold is holding perfectly. We could keep them there forever if we wanted to. The mighty Dominion fleet hung in space, each ship frozen in a private bubble of altered reality. 300 of the most powerful warships ever built, helpless before a single human vessel. "Send the message," Mark ordered. Adam's voice carried across space, reaching not just the trapped fleet, but every listening post and communication relay in the galaxy. The age of the Dominion is over. Humanity stands ready to usher in a new era, one where impossibility is just another problem to solve. The battle was over, but the revolution was just beginning. The Galactic Council chamber was silent. No laughter, no mockery, not even a whisper. The same beings who had ridiculed humanity's claims now sat in stunned silence as they watched the recorded battle footage. The Archimedes hovered outside the council station, its hull still shimmering with seventh-dimensional energy. Inside, Captain Mark stood before the council, but this time he wasn't asking for permission or recognition. "The Dominion fleet remains contained," he said calmly, "each ship perfectly preserved in its own dimensional pocket. We can release them whenever we choose." The Grand Speaker, who had laughed the loudest at humanity's claims, spoke in a trembling voice. "What are your demands? What does Earth want in exchange for their release?" Mark smiled. "We want what we've always wanted. Cooperation, not domination. The Dominion ruled through fear and power. Humanity chooses a different path." In the Archimedes engine room, Mary and Tom worked on something new. The quantum core pulsed with gentle light as they refined their control over the seventh dimension. "The dimensional mathematics are stabilizing," Mary reported over the comm. "We can start sharing the basic principles with other species, the safe ones, at least." Adam's holographic form appeared beside them. "Multiple species are already requesting technical assistance. They're particularly interested in how humans perceive dimensional space differently." On the council station's main screen, the Archimedes demonstrated its power one final time. Reality folded gently around the ship, and suddenly the trapped Dominion fleet reappeared in normal space. Their mighty warships hung powerless, their energy drained by their time in dimensional isolation. "Your ships will need about a week to recharge," Mark informed the Dominion High Commander. "We've taken the liberty of modifying your dimensional weapons. They'll no longer function for warfare, but they'll serve your people well for peaceful exploration." The High Commander, visible on the screen, looked aged despite their crystalline form. "Millions of years of power ended in a day, because we were too proud to see that a different perspective might succeed where ours had failed." Tom's voice came through Mark's communicator. "Captain, we're ready to begin the technological sharing protocols." Mary simplified the seventh-dimensional physics into something other species can understand step by step, just like we did. In the council chamber, representatives from 100 species leaned forward as Mark activated a holographic display. It showed the basic principles of seventh-dimensional travel, broken down into simple, understandable steps. "This is our gift to the galaxy," he said. "Not a weapon, not a means of control, but a new way of understanding reality itself. Humanity doesn't seek to rule. We seek to explore, to learn, and to grow. Together." The Grand Speaker rose from their seat. "And if some species choose to use this knowledge for war, they'll find it impossible." Mary's voice joined the conversation. "The seventh dimension responds to cooperation, to careful understanding, to taking things one step at a time. Try to force it, try to dominate it, and it simply slips away." Outside the station, the Archimedes continued its gentle dance through dimensions. Its hull reflected light from 1,000 stars, each beam bending through 7 dimensions before reaching the eye. "The age of laughter and mockery is over," Mark concluded. "So is the age of fear and dominion. Welcome to humanity's contribution to the galaxy. An era where impossible things become possible if we work together to understand them." One by one, the council members stood. No one laughed now. No one mocked. They had seen what humanity could do, not just with technology, but with a fundamentally different way of thinking. The Archimedes quantum core hummed softly, its seven-dimensional folds spreading out like invisible wings through space. Humanity had reached for the stars, dreamed the impossible, and changed the galaxy forever. And somewhere, in dimensions that most species were only beginning to understand, new frontiers waited to be explored. New impossibilities waited to be overcome. New wonders waited to be discovered. The laughter had stopped. The revolution had succeeded. Now the real journey could begin.